7,000 cancellations in 5 days. That is the number Delta Airlines gives in its own lawsuit over the July 2024 CrowdStrike outage. Delta says the faulty update crippled its operations for several days, affected more than 1 million customers, caused over $500 million in out-of-pocket losses, and damaged the airline's reputation and goodwill. That last phrase is the real story: reputation and goodwill. An airline can have a bad week, but when the airline's entire brand is built around reliability, a bad week can become a warning sign. And by 2026, Delta was not the only carrier where the gap between reputation and current record had widened. Today we are looking at 5 U.S. airlines that got worse heading into 2026. Not the 5 worst airlines in America, not the 5 cheapest. The 5 whose recent record shows a clear deterioration signal: enforcement actions, operational breakdowns, disability rights failures, regulatory scrutiny, or complaint patterns that got harder to ignore. No airline paid us. This is purely our research. Welcome to the Hidden Boarding Pass. This episode also connects back to the first airline investigations on this channel. Earlier, the question was which airlines travelers should choose or avoid based on the documented record. This time, the question is sharper: which airlines changed enough that an old opinion may now be outdated? In travel, the most expensive mistake is often trusting a brand memory that no longer matches the current system. Number 5 is United Airlines. United's issue is not one simple fee, one lawsuit, or one viral passenger complaint. The concern is oversight and operational confidence. In February 2026, reporting on a Department of Transportation Inspector General audit said federal oversight of United Airlines maintenance had been hindered by inadequate staffing, high turnover, and the improper use of virtual inspections instead of on-site reviews in some cases. The audit covered FAA oversight between May 2024 and December 2025. It found that resource constraints reduced on-site work and that staffing shortages limited surveillance of United's maintenance operations. That is an important distinction. The audit was about FAA oversight of United, not a final finding that United itself violated maintenance rules. But for passengers, oversight matters. A strong airline safety system is not just the airline saying its airplanes are safe. It is the regulator having enough people, enough expertise, enough data access, and enough on-site visibility to verify that the system is working. Then came a 2026 ground incident. The National Transportation Safety Board's preliminary report says United Flight 605, a Boeing 737, collided with 2 de-icing trucks while taxiing out of the de-ice pad at Denver International Airport on March 6, 2026. There were no injuries to the passengers or crew. One de-icing agent sustained minor injuries, and the airplane sustained substantial damage. The investigation remains ongoing. United is on this list because its 2026 warning signal is not about comfort. It is about confidence. When a major airline is surrounded by questions about maintenance oversight, staffing constraints at the regulator, and active ground operation investigations, travelers should pay attention. For ordinary travelers, the practical takeaway is not to become an aircraft mechanic. It is to notice when the oversight story gets noisier. If a trip depends on United, build in more connection time, avoid fragile same-day plans, and pay attention to aircraft swaps, maintenance delays, and hub-specific disruption reports. Confidence is not panic. It is planning around the record that exists now. Number 4 is Southwest Airlines. For decades, Southwest sold simplicity, open seating, 2 free checked bags, fast turns, no assigned seat game. That model made Southwest feel different. By 2026, that identity was changing. In January 2025, the Department of Transportation and the Department of Justice sued Southwest, alleging that the airline illegally operated multiple chronically delayed flights and disrupted passenger travel. DOT said operating chronically delayed flights is an unrealistic scheduling practice that can harm passengers and fair competition. The DOT said Southwest operated 2 chronically delayed flights, one between Chicago Midway and Oakland, and another between Baltimore and Cleveland, that resulted in 180 flight disruptions. between April and August 2022. Each flight was chronically delayed for 5 straight months. DOT said that based on Bureau of Transportation Statistics estimates from Southwest submitted data, Southwest was responsible for more than 90% of the disruptions for those 2 flights. Southwest pushed back. The airline said it was disappointed by the lawsuit and pointed to a broader record, including completing more than 99% of its flights without cancellation in 2024. That concession matters. This episode is not saying Southwest became the worst airline in America, but Southwest got worse in a different way. The airline that passengers used to understand instantly became harder to understand. Assigned seating began replacing open seating in 2026. New boarding groups and paid seating logic changed the passenger experience. Industry analysis warned that assigned seating could slow the rapid turns Southwest built its operation around. Whether the system eventually works or not, the old Southwest was simpler than the new Southwest. For a traveler who valued Southwest because it was predictable, the got worse signal is clear. Legal pressure over schedule realism on one side and a more complicated operating model on the other. This matters because Southwest's old value was not only price, it was mental simplicity. A family knew how bags worked. A frequent traveler knew how boarding worked. A senior traveler did not have to study seat maps, fare bundles, and boarding groups the same way they might on other airlines. When that changes, the airline may eventually become more profitable, but the passenger has to relearn the product. Number 3 is American Airlines. American's warning is the most serious for travelers with disabilities. In October 2024, the Department of Transportation assessed a $50 million penalty against American Airlines for numerous serious violations of laws protecting passengers with disabilities between 2019 and 2023. DOT said American failed in numerous cases to provide adequate wheelchair assistance, including assistance with boarding, deplaning, connections, and moving within the terminal. The DOT order said inadequate wheelchair assistance included untimely assistance, unsafe physical assistance, and undignified assistance. In some cases, DOT said the failures resulted in injury. The order also said passengers reported that American mishandled thousands of wheelchairs and scooters by damaging them or delaying their timely return. For travelers who do not use mobility devices, this may sound like a separate issue. It is not. A wheelchair is not luggage. It is mobility, independence, and health. When an airline delays or damages it, the passenger may lose the ability to move safely through an airport, use a restroom independently, leave the destination airport, or continue the trip at all. In December 2025, DOT amended the order. Instead of American paying the remaining roughly $16.7 million to the U.S. Treasury, DOT required American to spend about $16.8 million on passenger experience improvements and equipment for wheelchair handling. DOT also credited American $700,000 for compensation provided to affected passengers with disabilities in 2024 and 2025. That amendment is not a clean bill of health. It is a sign that the problem required concrete investment after the penalty. American is on this list because getting worse is not always about late flights. Sometimes it is about how the system treats the passenger who has the least margin for error. This is also why American belongs in the middle of the list, not at the bottom. Many travelers can avoid a fee, skip a tight connection, or choose a different seat. A traveler who needs wheelchair assistance cannot simply opt out of the system. If the airline fails there, the failure reaches the body, not just the itinerary. You have seen 3 kinds of deterioration: regulatory oversight questions at United, model disruption at Southwest, and disability rights enforcement at American. The final 2 are where the numbers become harder for ordinary passengers to dismiss. Subscribe to the Hidden Boarding Pass and hit the notification bell. Let us finish this. Number 2 is Frontier Airlines. Frontier is the airline where the low fare keeps pulling travelers back, but the complaint record keeps warning them. In January 2025, DOT issued Order 025-1-2 against Frontier. The department's Office of Aviation Consumer Protection determined that Frontier held out 3 chronically delayed flights between August 2022 and April 2023 at least 63 times, in violation of federal law and DOT rules. The order directed Frontier to cease and desist from future similar violations and assessed $650,000 in civil penalties. DOT explained the broader rule in its Southwest lawsuit release. Unrealistic scheduling can be an unfair, deceptive, and anti-competitive practice because it disrupts passengers' travel plans and gives travelers unreliable schedule information. A flight is chronically delayed when it is flown at least 10 times a month and arrives more than 30 minutes late more than 50% of the time. Cancellations and diversions count in that calculation. Frontier's problem is not only that order. USPIRG's plain Truth 2026 report, based on DOT complaint benchmarks, said Frontier again had the worst complaint ratio among major U.S. airlines for October through December 2025. 19 complaints per 100,000 passengers. The next highest was Spirit at 11.9. The average among the 10 largest airlines and their marketing partners was 4.8. PIRG also said Frontier had the worst complaint ratio in 2022, 2023, and 2024 by a wide margin. That is why Frontier belongs above bigger airlines in this episode. A cheap fare can still be a rational choice for a short, flexible trip. But when the same airline appears in DOT schedule enforcement and repeats as the complaint ratio leader for years, the low fare has to be evaluated with the disruption risk included. For Frontier, the safest use case is narrow. Flexible dates, short routes, no checked bag dependency, and no critical arrival time. The riskiest use case is the opposite. 1 flight per day, a cruise departure, a prepaid hotel, medical travel, or a connection that collapses if the first leg slips. The fare may be low, but the backup plan can be expensive. Number 1 is Delta Airlines. Delta is not number 1 because it is the worst airline. Delta is number 1 because it got worse relative to its own reputation. Delta spent years selling reliability. Business travelers trusted it. Premium travelers paid for it. Families chose it when they wanted fewer surprises. That is why the CrowdStrike meltdown hit differently. Delta's complaint against CrowdStrike says the faulty update disabled most of Delta's computers running Microsoft Windows, crippled operations for several days, forced thousands of cancellations and delays, and affected more than 1 million customers. The complaint says Delta experienced approximately 7,000 flight cancellations over 5 days and estimated more than $500 million in out-of-pocket losses, plus harm to reputation and goodwill. The Department of Transportation opened an investigation into Delta's recovery from the outage. Reporting at the time said DOT had received hundreds of complaints and expected Delta to provide hotels, meals, and quick refunds where required. Delta said it was cooperating and focused on restoring operations and caring for customers. By 2026, the reliability question had not disappeared. Aviation reporting based on DOT's January 2026 Air Travel Consumer Report said Delta fell to 6th in reliability rankings after a 2.45% cancellation rate across 132,034 scheduled flights. The same reporting described a May 2026 weekend disruption, with hundreds of cancellations attributed by Delta to crew restrictions. The fair concession is that Delta still performs well in many areas and has a long history of stronger operations than many competitors, but that is exactly why it is number 1. When an airline with a weak reputation struggles, passengers are not surprised. When an airline known for reliability starts showing cracks, the consumer risk is different because travelers may still be paying for the old reputation. That is what makes Delta the headline, not just another entry. Delta's premium is built into fares, credit cards, loyalty behavior, airport choices, and corporate travel policies. If the reliability premium weakens, Travelers should ask whether the price premium still makes sense for the specific trip in front of them. There are 3 ways to use this list before booking. First, compare each airline to its own promise. Delta promises reliability. Southwest promises simplicity. Frontier promises savings. American promises basic dignity and assistance. United promises confidence in a complex global operation. The question is whether the recent record supports the promise. Second, separate price from consequence. A late flight on a flexible weekend trip is annoying. A late flight before a cruise, medical appointment, funeral, or international connection can be expensive. The risk is not the same for every passenger. Third, check the current record, not the memory of the brand. The airline that was best 5 years ago may not be best this year. The airline that used to be simple may now be changing its model. The airline that says it improved may still be under an order, audit, or complaint pattern. Delta's 7,000 cancellations are public. American's $50 million disability penalty is public. Southwest's chronic delay lawsuit is public. Frontier's $650,000 DOT order is public. United's oversight audit and NTSB preliminary report are public. None of this means these airlines should never be flown. It means the brand name alone is not enough. Share this video with someone who still books based on what an airline used to be. If the hidden boarding pass has been valuable to you, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And remember, the truth is not always on the boarding pass.